Namaste. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's chant our usual complement of verses. 1, 5, 20, and then we will do a couple of more in the end. So let's start with that. Rupam drishyam lochanam drikhu tadrishyam driktu manasam drishyadhi vrittaya sakshi drigeva natu drishyate nodeti nastametyesha navriddhim yati nakshayam swayam vibhatyat anyani bhasayet sadhanam vina asti bhati priyam rupam nama chetyam shapanchakam adyatrayam brahma rupam jagat rupam tatodvayam. So now let us chant verses number 33, 34 and 35. So 33 we did last time, and today we'll do 2 more, and then we will do a meditation. I'll go into that in a minute. So number 33. Avacheda kalpitasya avacheda kalpitasyat avachedyam tu vastakam tasmin jivattvamaropat brahmatvam tu svabhavataha avachinnasya jivasya purnena brahmanaikatam tattvamasya vakyani jagurnetara jivayo. One more time. Number 34. Avachinnasya jivasya purnena brahmanaikatam tattvamasya vakyani jagurnetara jivayo. Number 35. Brahmanyavasthita maya vikshepa vritti rupini avritya khandatam tasmin jagat jivau prakalpayet. One more time. Brahmanyavasthita maya vikshepa vritti rupini avritya khandatam tasmin jagat jivau prakalpayet. So I think what we will do is briefly commented on verse number 34 and 35. And in fact, I think I mentioned this to you before. Verses number 32 onwards are more of a different way of describing what has already been talked about from verses 1 to 31. So the main text is really from verse 1 to 31, and there is a good case to be made that the rest of it was added later to clarify certain points, but not to bring in something brand new. So that being the case, I will also treat it the same way. And in that sense, what I think we will do is not to go through the verses 32 onwards, word for word, in detail or anything, but just to make some comments that exemplify what the verse is all about conceptually, and then bring out certain aspects of the vidya that has already been covered in verses number 1 1 to 31. So this is what I propose to do rather quickly, but then to concentrate on making sure that our introduction to meditation, Nididhyasanam, is complete. So with that in view, I think what I will do is briefly comment on verse number 34 and 35 today, just now. And then we will finish the 7 different aspects of the preparation for Nididhyasanam. We've already done 6. We will do the 7th one today, and that will complete the preparation. And then if time permits, we actually will do a Nididhyasanam on verse number 20 today. And if not today, then we will continue to do that in the future. I think we will revise the preparation briefly, but really spend most of the time in Nididhyasanam, especially the verses that dealt with Savikalpa and Nivrikalpa Samadhi. And those were starting with verse number 22, Upeksha nama rupe dve Satchidananda tatparaha samadhim sarvada kuryat hridaye va athava bahihi. Then Savikalpo nirvikalpaha samadhir dvivido hridi Drishya shabdanuvedhena Savikalpa punardvida, etc. And then also so all the way up to 27, 28. So that we will do in terms of meditation, Nididhyasanam, from the next few classes on. And then that will complete our, the Drg Drsya Viveka. Okay, so with that, let's briefly look at number 34 and 35. So number 34 says, Avachinnasya jivasya purnena brahmana ekatam tattvamasadi vakyani jaguhu na itare jivayoho. He says that the statements by the Upanishad Tattvamasi that you are that Brahman, etc. Excuse me, pardon me a second. They declare the identity between the Jivatma, the Sakshi, and the Paramatma, which is Brahman. And it talks about the identity of Brahman with the Jivatma, but not the one in the dream. So remember, we had talked about the 3 different identities. One was the waking person who is taking ourselves to be living, working, etc. So this is, I think, the one good thing to, if you look at it, I'm just going to give you a general idea about that. So this is what is called the I thought. So the I thought is I am. I am aware, I am. So the I thought is the central thought of each person. Each person. One example given on this by Swami Dayanandji was very useful. What he said was that, listen, supposing you start a company, you decide that I have an idea and I think this is something that needs to be explored, and I'm going to make this into a product and have a big promotion for it, And for that I need some people. So I need to hire some helpers, some engineers, some salespeople, some secretary, all those kinds of things. So you surround yourself with a bunch of people, and together all of them become known as Company A. So in the Company A, you are there and everybody else is also there. So in our life, this is not dissimilar in terms of who we are as an individual. So as individuals, we are kind of like a living company, Company A. And in this Company A, the I thought is the central person. And the reason that example from Swami Dayananji comes to my mind is that one is the one which is the avachinna chidabhasa. Avachinna chidabhasa. So this is the I thought. Now the I thought is the main person, and now the other people that you employ to complete your company are like your body, mind, sense organs and organs of actions. So you are someone that has an identity, and in this identity you are the main person. The I thought is the main person. Remember now, this is the I thought. I thought means that when you are awake, you think of yourself, this is who I am. And by the way, the I thought in a dream is a completely different I thought. It's not the same person that was in the waking state. Right? So that's how we talked about three identities. Well, anyways, that will come later on, but just completing the analysis of the Company A. So what happens is that you are the I thought, and you need some people to assist you in transacting. Because the I thought by itself is not in business. What is in business is who you are, what you are, how you are. We saw that in the earlier class that we did today. You cannot go to a doctor and say, I want to tell me whether I am. That's very obvious. There's no reason to do all of that. But you go to the doctor as to what you are. Swami Dayananji also said the same thing very well, that we have no doubts about the fact that I am and I am aware. But I have a doubt about who I am. That I am is not a doubt, but who I am, what I am, how am I, what is my future, what is my past, there I have some doubts. So this is the I thought, that I am. Now in order to complete the Company A, you need some accompanying things. So the accompanying things are your thoughts. So you hire some, you just like you hire people, you hire some thoughts. You hire a body. You hire the physiological aspects of the body. You hire all of that. Now, having surrounded yourself with these hires, you go to business. You can talk to someone. You can say, hi, I am such and such. You can shake hands with somebody. May I please come in? So what goes in is the original, which is the I thought, plus all the hires that you have. The whole company goes in. Now, here one interesting thing is that the hires can be changed. Like if supposing there's a person who starts a company and he finds that the company itself is good, but some of the people working in it are not so good. So you fire them. You hire somebody new. But your identity as the original person, the person, doesn't change. So this is exactly what happens when supposing you have some ideas, some thoughts that are not working, you discard them. You discard them and you bring in some new ideas, new thoughts. It doesn't happen as much with the body, but it can happen with the body. You can actually change parts of the body. People get their noses fixed and their turkey necks changed, or all kinds of things can be done in the body. And you don't like aging, so you can transplant hair from your legs to the top of the hair. Some changes in the body can be made up to a certain point. So you keep on changing the hires, the people that you've hired to assist you with living, but you always remain the same. But here's the thing. Your estimation of who you are, this I thought, itself is flawed. Itself is flawed. How is it flawed? Because you have circumscribed yourself in the very I thought. So in that sense, the I thought and your hires. Now hires may be all different, but that they are there. The only time you completely stay independent without any accompaniment is in deep sleep. And we know that. And in fact, the deep sleep is a very interesting example because you can exist without all the accompanying things. But you discard that when you wake up in the morning or when you dream. You need to have somebody along with you in order to make sure that you are visible, you are transacting, you are a company. But so this circumscribed, when you say I, you don't think of yourself as an independent I. You think of yourself as a circumscribed I. That circumscribed I is what is called Jivatma. And there is also an uncircumscribed Atma, which is Paramatma, where the Paramatma has no limitations whatsoever. Going back to our example of space and the room space. So now we can go back to, with this background, we can go to the verse number 34, where he says that the identity between Jivatma and Paramatma is already established but not understood. is not really understood. It is, so really speaking, you have surrounded yourself with a very firm thought that I am the room space, circumscribed by the walls. And somebody says, no, 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 that's just your way of looking at it. You are the truth. I don't get it. Don't mess with my understanding that I am the room space. This is who I am. I've always been here. I know there is an interplay between the walls and me, and don't like it, but this is the way it is. So the whole idea that I am really total space doesn't even appear to me. But that is the truth. You are the total space, and if you just revisualize yourself, then what you find is that the walls are not enclosing the space is enclosing the walls. And this takes a while, but if you follow the truth and make sure that you are clear about it, examine it from all the different ways and so on, you're free. So here, one thing that triggered my mind, I thought I would just discuss this as far as 34 is concerned, and then we will move on. And that is that, so I think I gave this example in one of the earlier classes. I forget whether it was in Drg Drsya Viveka or in some of the other classes. It's a very beautiful example that was presented by Swami Maheshanandji. So what he said was, and if it was in this class, then it's a repetition for you. So there is a doubt in our mind about the difference between the word Brahman and the word Ishvara. Right? So Ishvara pertains to a God who is responsible for the functioning of the entire world. Okay? So it's a person with a personality. And the word Brahman refers to the content of Ishvara. See? So again, I think I have to shift the examples. If you look at the ocean, then the word ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, what have you, whatever you can define it as, is the personality of the ocean. The difference there is that even that ocean is limited. But in the case of Ishvara, the personality is unlimited. Now, the content of the ocean is water. So the question is there a real difference between water and ocean? Not really. The ocean is just a name that you ascribe to the water from a standpoint of a reference. Like in that case, you can say the Atlantic Ocean means that one which is between the US and Europe and all in that area is called the Atlantic. It's the same water, but you give it a name, a form of some kind. So this is how Ishvara is. And the content of Ishvara, like the content of the Atlantic Ocean is water, the content of Ishvara is Brahman. And Brahman is the same as Satchidananda Asti Bhati Priyam Asti Bhati Priyam. As we will see in more detail as we study this more. So the content is Brahman of Paramatma Ishvara. So in this regard, please see this example. So Maheshwaranji says that suppose you have a sun, S-U-N, sun, that is shining bright. And there's only one sun, at least in our there are billions of infinite number of suns. But in our experience, we only have one sun. And that sun is the one which is shining by itself and lighting up the whole world. Whatever is there, it lights up. That's the function of the sun. And also heats it up. These are the two functions. It imparts warmth and it imparts light. Both are very crucial in our lives. We will not be able to be alive if either one of them is not true. So we are being held together by the sun. Be that as it may, just look at the example of the sun. Now, in the sun, you have a possibility of a lot of reflections in different puddles of water. And so on a bright sunny day like today here in California, supposing you have some rain that occurred overnight and there are puddles of water, you can have a very clear reflection of the sun. And you can have multiple ones of those. If you're standing up on the second floor of a building and you see the puddles, you can see multiple suns being reflected. And the reflected suns look like the real one. They may not have the same heat, may not have the same light, but they have pretty much the shape of the sun. Right? Okay. So now the puddle reflected sun looks like the sun, but it is a reflection of the sun. So from that standpoint, the sun is called bimba in the Sanskrit word. Bimba means the original, and pratibimba means the copy. So you now have a duality of pratibimba and bimba. But there is a big difference. The big difference is in the reality of pratibimba. The pratibimba is not a competition to the sun. It is not on the same reality as the sun. It is a lower level of reality than the sun. And in fact, if the puddle of the water becomes dry, the pratibimba gets absorbed in the sun. Because we can say, what happened to it? What happened to it? Because I saw the reflection just a minute ago and now it is gone. And so what it is it has gotten absorbed in the main sun. So now, look at this. This is the example between Ishvara and Brahman. Okay, just this aspect of it. The sun is called Bimba. You can say this is the Bimba sun, means the original sun. So let's use the English words. Let's leave aside Bimba and Pratibimba now. We can say this is the original sun or you can say the real sun, and this is the unreal reflection or the reflected sun. So there are two things. There is a real sun and a reflected sun. But once the reflection is gone, the word original also disappears. It is no longer the original sun, it becomes just the sun. So the difference between Ishvara and Brahman, just to close off this topic, that's the reason I'm bringing it up. The difference between Ishvara and Brahman is, Ishvara is from the standpoint of the so-called creation. But the Ishvara is nothing but Brahman. There is no Ishvaratvam in the Brahman. There is just nothing but Brahman, which is the very Asti Bhati Priyam. Satchidanandaha Satyam Jnanam Anantam. This is what it is. And so really speaking, that you are, that identity that Mahavakya that it talks about, is saying that you are nothing but the same thing. All the dissimilarities are removed, and so the room space and the total space remain exactly the same. There's no difference, and the Maya Upadhi is creating this differentiation between them. That's all it is. So that's what verse number 34 talked about. So let me now go briefly to the verse number 35. So again, this is not something which is brand new. We have already covered that in some of the previous verses. But let me comment on a couple of aspects of it. And this is what I will do for each one of them, not a complete explanation. But let me read it first. Maya, which is of the nature of projecting and veiling, abides in Brahman. Having veiled the non-dual nature of Brahman, Maya creates and projects the world and the jiva on Brahman. Okay. Brahmani avasthita Maya vikshepa avritti rupini avritya akhandatam tasmin jagajivau prakalpayet. So we've already seen this before. But the aspect that I want to bring in as an opportunity to do so is this. Maya is the capability of so-called projecting, which is not the truth. It has the power to project untruth. And this is an important aspect of the whole Srishti, because the truth of the whole Srishti means a creation. The truth of the whole creation is that it is non-dual, unchanging. And the only way for the creation to be present is for a possibility of projecting due to ignorance. I think I've mentioned that before to you also, that just like a painter uses paint to paint pictures, the only paint that Ishvara needs to paint this whole picture of the world, the three-dimensional picture of the world is ignorance, Maya Shakti. That's it. So it's a pretend creation. And as long as you do not understand this is a pretend creation, you get into problems. The moment you see that this is a pretend creation, you're free. You're free of problems. This is what this whole world is all about. This is what Vedanta is projecting. So this is point number one. The second point I wanted to say, and then I'm done with number 35. And this took me quite a long time to also figure this out through reading and cross-checking that is this correct, is this the right way to think about it. It took me a while to do so, and so let me just share my understanding of what this is. You know, we talk about Ishvara and Maya, that there is a power to create through ignorance and confusion and so on and so forth. And the way we look at Maya, etc., is an external power that has created problems for me. So just like I look upon Ishvara also different from me, which is a mistake, I look upon Maya as being different from me, which is also a mistake. So then what? So what is the new insight here? This is what I am now going to tell you. What we have to think about is not a Maya as an external Shakti, power, but my own Shakti, my own power to create problems for myself. So what I'm saying is that really speaking, what is useful for us to do, useful for us to look at, is not looking at Maya as an external force that I have to deal with. I have to see that my own ability to fool myself is the cause of my problems. This is what I'm just telling you about. And this is very similar to what Vedanta has been saying, that the best thing you can do about yourself is to not to play the blame game. Don't blame anything. Don't blame the world or even yourself. Nothing. You just deal with facts. And the facts are that you and I have the power to look at ourselves as we are, or to fail to look at ourselves as we are and delude ourselves. So, in short, the Maya Shakti that Dix also talks about, Brahmani eva avasthita Maya, etc., etc., that the Maya Shakti also should be looked upon as my own power. If you want to look at it to an individual aspect of Maya, fine. So this is what is called avidya. Sometimes there is a difference between looked upon as avidya, which is ignorance, individual ignorance, and the total Maya. Fine. That's just academic. But in reality, what really should work for us is, this is the bottom line, I have to take ownership for my own thinking. I am the one that is projecting the world, and I have the power to delude myself, to make myself and I am the one that has to figure it all out. And for that, you may need some prayers, some help. That's okay. But it has to be taken responsibility at an individual level. And so when I look at, from now on, really speaking, when I hear the word Maya and so on, I don't look upon this as something which is imposed on me by someone else and I don't know what to do. Nothing like that. I have to proceed along refining my own vision about myself. And I may need the help, that's okay. But I have to take responsibility. And just to give you an idea on this, I forget the verse from Kathopanishad that any amount of study and any amount of repetition and so on is not as helpful, but a sense of ownership, and I'll try to come up with the exact verse next time, your own analysis that this I must solve and I must think correctly, I must have the wisdom, I must have the strength. This is the word dhira. Dhira is the one has two dual aspects of the word dhira. Dhira has wisdom and also the power to change myself. So the Maya Shakti also should be transformed into something which you have the power to confuse yourself, and now you have the power to redo this so that you're no longer confused. Those are the thoughts that come into my mind when I'm reading these kinds of things. Otherwise, it is pretty much the same information that we had done before. Okay, so it's 10:43. So now let us go into, as I promised, the last piece of the preparation for meditation. Let me see how long it would take, and then we might do some real meditation, or we may postpone it to next time. Okay, so with that, let us briefly revise the 6 steps that we have seen before as preparation for meditation or dhyanam, and then we will introduce the last one today, and with that the list of aspects that help me in the preparation will be complete. Okay, so let's do that. Om Namaste Astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Triambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikalagnikalaya Kalagnirudraya Neelakantaya Mrityunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha. So as we learn the various steps and various aspects of preparing for Nididhyasana, one thing to be kept in mind is that all these steps and aspects are not necessary to be repeated every time. They should be looked upon as tools at your disposal that you can pick and choose as what works best for you. So there are 7 different steps or aspects of this preparation. Let us briefly revisit the first 6 that we have seen before. One is sankalpa. And a simple sankalpa means resolution, clarification of what you're trying to do, or putting a frame around the meditation. Meditation itself is the picture, but the sankalpa is the frame. Sankalpa should be factual and clear. We suggest that you use the following sankalpa, or you can change it to suit your own. The sankalpa should be an address to your own mind, saying, "Listen, my mind, for the next half hour or 20 minutes or whatever you choose to do, I am interested in exploring who I am as a person. I am not interested in my personality. Said another way, I am interested in myself, the actor, and not in the roles that I play. I would like your cooperation in keeping this objective in mind. This is step number 1. Step number 2 is posture, asana. And as part of asana, I would even add the time and place. And frequency. the suggestion would be to make it once a day. Even if you're busy, unless you are traveling, catching a plane, etc., in extreme circumstances, try to carve out even a small amount of time, as little as 5 minutes, to sit down and meditate every day. Choose preferably sometime in the morning, at a place where it is quiet, relatively quiet, doesn't have to be absolutely quiet. In a sitting posture, asana, which is, as we have seen, the balance between slouching, of being very comfortable, or being uncomfortably straight. Good posture, keeping it simple. A good posture is one where the tendency to go to sleep is minimized, and also it is comfortable to a point where you don't have to change your posture during the time for the meditation. Step number three is to observe the sense of touch. Which is an important organ, sense organ given to you, which is the only organ which is present throughout your body. Here, you can start with the obvious points of touch and slowly go to the more subtle aspects of the touch, which are the two sets of eyelashes touching each other. Step number 4 is to do a mental survey of your entire body to relax the body. In this step, I would even include any parts of the tight clothing like a belt, and to loosen it. We have seen some techniques for this mental survey. You pause in places where the physical tension is more prevalent, like the stomach. Paying attention is the most important thing. Just being available for those parts to relax, your availability to pause there is important. It can also end in your visualizing the body as a unit. The next step is some simple pranayama, just observing your breath. You can even do the Nadi Shuddhi of taking breath in from one nostril, out of the second nostril, and reversing the whole process. Or you can just observe the incoming breath and the outgoing breath as being both equal in duration and relatively long. The next step is to observe your thoughts. If you have done all the other steps well, your thoughts are going to be very quiet anyway. But if you do not have the time to go through the other steps, then observing your thoughts is a good step. Observing your thoughts and putting them in one of three buckets is useful. The bucket of the past thoughts, the bucket of the present thoughts, and the bucket of the future thoughts. It is useful to categorize them and to communicate to your mind, I know where you're coming from. It's okay. Let's set that aside, consistent with the sankalpa. These are the 6 steps that we had seen before. Let us look at the last step, which is japa. Japa here means some simple chanting. Here, the logic of the japa is useful to know. If you observe the way our mind works, it is associative thinking. One frame leading to the next frame, leading to another frame of thought, to another, and so on. The jumping from one frame is usually in some association. You can think of a car. That leads you to the thought of, I must get some gas today. That leads to another thought, I wonder where I can go to get the cheapest gas. Leads to another thought, why are prices going up so much? Leads to another thought, it must be due to the cold spell in Texas. Leads to another thought, I'm so sorry people are suffering there. Leads to another thought. I wonder my friend in Texas how he is doing. And so on. This is the associative nature of our thoughts. It's not a defect. This is the way it is supposed to work. Except when you want to be absorbed and be focused on a given topic. If that is the case, then the associative way of thinking becomes an obstacle. This is the logic of japa. So the japa is to induce your mind to go from one frame to another without any association. Get used to thinking without jumping from one frame to another. Japa can be done either purely mentally or with the help of a garland of beads, a mala. The japa can be done without any tune or according to your taste, you may do japa with a tune. Let's look at both of them. It is recommended that you do a japa of some form of Ishvara. As long as you're doing japa, you might as well use that as a prayer to Ishvara. A simple form of japa could be Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. So here, the two frames are both identical. So there is no jumping, no associative jumping, because it's the same. You come back to the same one. It is recommended that in the beginning you do it with the telling of the beads. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 The reason for telling the beads with your fingers is that if your mind happens to break the japa by going to another thought, the fingers also stop counting the beads. This way you can see the break and get back to the japa. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. A variation on the japa could be some tune that you have heard and you like. Could be a small number of words or could be a complete sentence. Like something like this. Jai Jai Ram Krishna Hari. 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 So that was the last step, japa. So I believe we had 7 steps. That we have covered, and you can pick and choose based on what works best for you. This is the preparation for Nididhyasanam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Japa. Gosh, so many of you are attending both the classes. I still don't understand how you do that. It must be tiring for you. But anyway, welcome to all of you. And Shri, regarding the analogy of ocean and water, is Brahman water and Ishvara ocean? Exactly. That's precisely right. Maitri, good that that you like the meditation. I think that I think it was Anne Cherie's suggestion that I really made it actionable, where she thought that we need to spend more time on meditation. And since the text itself is devoted to it, so in the next few classes, again, I'm just repeating myself, I won't spend a lot of time just going through the words of each of these verses. I think they're pretty much done. You have the book to read if you want to really go into it. They're all good, but more of a repetition. But I think what I will do is to systematically go through more and more advanced meditations. And so we will do that. So we'll do, perhaps we will start the class with the meditation, and then time permitting, we will go into some of the verses, rather than the other way around. Like today also, I didn't get enough time to start a meditation, other than the preparation. So I think from now on, I'm just talking to myself. I will just do a systematic set of meditations, and then also cover the ground for the rest of the verses. I don't know, my guess is maybe 8 or 10 classes, maybe at the most, probably. I'd like to limit it. And then I think we're done with Drg Drsya Viveka, and we will go back to chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita that we have started. And once we do chapter 8, my intent is to take up an Upanishad in this class. Kaivalya Upanishad is what I'm thinking of. And so that will be after the 8th chapter. And so each chapter we will do one chapter plus some other text. One chapter, some other text. That's my plan. Let's hope that we have chance to implement that plan. So with that, thank you so much, and we will see you next week. Om.